My dear friends, the Feast of Ascension naturally reminds all of us of the art, the traditional picture of the resurrected body of Jesus going into space on a space journey, moving up into the clouds from a mountain. That's exactly what engrosses our minds when we think of the Ascension. But if we ask ourselves the question now, where was he going? Especially living in the 21st century, young men and women, knowing little science, can ask the question, how is it this possible? Where did he go? If he went, where is heaven in this cosmological reality? How can we prove that Jesus was moved up and that he went to a physical place? Now, when you try to understand this question, when we try to explain and make sense of resurrection and ascension, Bishop Robert Barron, a contemporary theologian, he argues that what had happened to Christian thinking or Christian message was that it was interpreted, it was understood mainly through Greek philosophical mind. The logicality of the Western philosophy has influenced our thinking so much that today, even for us, even though we read the Hebrew Bible, we understand body is separated from the soul. Earth life and heaven life as two distinct realities. But he says, it's only necessary that we have to read the Hebrew mind and understand the Hebrew mentality in order to make sense of this entire series of mysteries that are presented to us through the Hebrew scriptures. We only have to start reading the first book in the Old Testament, book of Genesis, the story of creation. As John Lennox, a great theologian, a great mathematician of Oxford University, he suggests that the greatest scientific statement about the origins of the universe is found in the Old Testament. What is it? It says, in the beginning was the light. Now, when you refer to light, it refers to something non-matter, non-material, not physical reality. You can call it energy, you can call it the spirit, you can call it the presence of the divine, whatever it is. But what John Lennox, the great mathematician, says is that when you say that matter was preceded by spirit, that means the energy or that whatever it was called light became mass or material, physical realities of the universe and the cosmos. Now it is continued on in the Old Testament where you can see that, like King David in the Psalms, you can see that they prayed with creation, they praised the creation, they saw the presence of the Spirit in creation. We can give so many examples, but at the same time, you can see the Hebrew mind that was so engraved in the mind of Jesus. When he was praying to the Father, he says, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. So for Jesus, heaven and earth were not necessarily two distinct realities. Heaven and earth, they coexist. Heaven is here and now as well. So it is also at the end of times. Now, if you understand the mind of Jesus, the mind of the Hebrew writers, the Hebrew language, Hebrew culture, Hebrew mind, it is always something that takes us to think and believe that matter coexists with spirit. Spirit can never be thought of or understood without matter and material reality. The physicality is also in spirituality. Spirituality is also in physicality. From the history of the church, there are so many church historians who marvel at the fact that in the first 6 centuries of the church, there was no finding of any art on the resurrection of Jesus or the ascension that we have today. It was considered unpaintable and uncarvable. So that points to the fact that the early Christians were people who had understood the depth of the mystery of life and the mystery of resurrection coexisting, and they realized that you cannot explain the resurrection, which is another dimension of human life, in black and white, in paintings or in carvings. Now, it refers to the fact that when you are a true believer in God, when you are a true believer in the mystery of life, certain things can never be fully explained, but can be experienced, because resurrection was an experience, but it was not a concept to be explained. It was something that they lived, which we find in the early Christian communities, because they made their Christian life become a heavenly existence where everyone shared equally whatever they had. There was no distinction of race and caste. There was no conflicts of great volumes, where they lived their earthly life almost like heavenly journeys on this earth. Having said that, my dear friends, living in the 21st century, any young person, boy or girl, most of the young people who have studied little science can always ask the question, all right, then what does it mean to be going to heaven? What does it mean to be going through resurrection? Yes, in order to understand resurrection or ascension, which are the two sides of the same coin, as it were, it is to be understood in terms of what it means to live. What life entails today, my dear friends, is that we have ourselves, because of Greek influence of our Christian presentation, we also tend to think that human life, the physical life, the bodily life, does not have anything that is supernatural, that it doesn't have anything that is beyond space and time. The physical life is only what is physical and material, which is, of course, once again, only science can explain and describe, but science can never explain what is beyond space and time, what is beyond the body, what is beyond the material reality, what is beyond the physicality of the human existence. But at the same time, my dear friends, we all have to accept the fact that even today, when you study science in its very depths, it is becoming more and more clear, especially through discoveries of depth psychology, discoveries of quantum physics, and also in the recent times, the widespread research that was done with near-death experiences. It is becoming even more clearer from the scientific point of view as well, that our physical life has supernatural dimension. Now, how do I explain this? Now, I was reading recently a book by the great British neuropsychiatrist Patrick Fenwick. The title of the book is The Art of Dying. Now, this surgeon or this neuropsychiatrist has studied and researched into 2,000 men and women who have gone through near-death experiences, those who have gone close to death and come back, as well as those who have died. And his research is so vast that he comes out finally and says that there are so many experiences of those who have gone through near-death experiences, as well as those who have witnessed people dying, that they, as they come close to their death, they speak about seeing people who have lived before, either calling them or asking them to visit them, or someone is waiting for them, or saying that there is a journey that they have to go, which can never be explained only from the pure material sense. Also, if you study the science of depth psychology, it is becoming more and more clear through modern research that human beings, we are people, we are material, physical entities, but we do have a psyche, the mind, which we can never explain within the space and time reality from a scientific realm, but also points to the fact that within us there is something supernatural that is beyond physical explanations, that gives us what the scientists today call luminous experiences. Luminous means experiences of beyond time and space nature. For example, there are people who can see things that are to happen later on in life. They are able to see things before they happen. That means there is something inside of them that gives them knowledge, or that gives them visions of what is going to happen later on within a week or month. They sometimes talk about the death of people. They sometimes talk about the tsunamis that come. There are people who can see in dreams what happens like a pandemic. All these point us to the fact that within our human body there is something beyond time and space. Therefore, the great theologian in the United States, Ron Hauser, he says, for me, he says, a Christian is someone who does not only believe in a God, but also someone who believes that matter and spirit coexist. Matter cannot be there without spirit, and spirit can never be understood without matter. The body is also in the soul is also in the body. What is human is also divine, what is divine is also human. So, in the mystery of resurrection and the mystery of ascension, which is the two sides of the same coin as it were, is where Jesus, who lived his human life to the fullness of humanity, is now moving into another dimension, which is the spirit dimension. So for you and for me, believing in resurrection and ascension means that we are people who believe just not only the material reality, but also the divine reality that is in materiality, so that our entire outlook on life is very different from that of others who call themselves materialists. Because a Christian is always a person who sees both dimensions in life. Amen.